Yeah, good afternoon, students. So, in the previous class, we have discussed the evolution of microprocessor or the history of microprocessor. Okay. Let me recall it quickly. Okay. So, the breakthrough in transistor and the integrated circuit technology led to the development of microprocessor in 1970s. Okay. And how do you categorize the microprocessor evolution? Microprocessor evolution is categorized into 5 generation based on their word size, okay, or word length. So word size or word length, as I said, it is the number of bits that can be processed by the microprocessor at a time. Okay, so microprocessor can be categorized based on their word length. Okay, so then we have 5 generation of microprocessor. So first is the 4-bit microprocessor. So first generation microprocessor also called as the 4-bit microprocessor. Okay, so can somebody tell which are the 4-bit microprocessor? Can you name some 4-bit microprocessor? Anybody? Which is the first 4-bit microprocessor? Microprocessor number 4004 is the first 4-bit microprocessor introduced by the Intel Corporation in 1971. Okay, and how many address lines it has? It has 12-bit address lines. So it is capable of addressing 4096 bytes of memory locations. Okay, so what do you mean by address bus? Or what is bus actually? Bus is nothing but, so as you know that the microprocessor, the memory, the input and output unit are all connected together by a set of parallel wires or lines called as the buses. Okay, so bus is a set of parallel wires, okay, that can transmit same type of information. Okay, same type of information means the information can be the data, the address, or the control signals. Okay, and there are 3 types of buses: data bus, address bus, and the control bus. So what is data bus? Data bus carries the data between the microprocessor and the other units. Then what is address bus? Address bus carries the memory address from the processor to other units. Then what is control bus? Control bus carries the control signals, okay, from the microprocessor to the other units. Okay, so this Intel 4004 has 12-bit address bus, okay, and it has 4-bit data bus. Okay. And these first generation microprocessor employed PMOS technology in the microprocessor design. Okay, that means the microprocessor is fabricated, okay, using this semiconductor technology called as PMOS technology. And what is the problem with these first generation microprocessor? The problem with the first generation microprocessor were the speed, okay, in terms of speed, the word width, and the memory size. Okay. Then Intel came with the 4040 microprocessor, which is also an updated version of 4004. Okay. So then came the second generation microprocessor, which are also called as 8-bit microprocessor. Okay. So can you name some 8-bit microprocessor? Anybody? Students?
8008.
Which one?
8008.
Yeah, good. 8008 is the first 8-bit microprocessor, okay, introduced by the Intel Corporation, okay, and this Intel was the first was the company to produce the first microprocessor actually, and has been holding a large share in the world market of this microprocessor. And this second generation microprocessor employed the N-channel MOSFET technology, which is faster than the PMOS technology. Okay, so again, N-channel MOSFET is also a semiconductor technology uh, that is used to fabricate these microprocessor chips. Then came the 8080 microprocessor. Okay, and then after that, after 8080, we have 8085. Okay, and at the same time, other companies started introducing their own version of the 8-bit microprocessor. Okay, such as Motorola, Zilog. From Motorola, we have MC6800, and from Zilog, we have Z80. Okay, these are also 8-bit microprocessor. Again, as I said, later the application started demanding microprocessor that has faster memory, okay, and then the additional instructions, okay, the word width, and so on. Okay, so then came the third generation microprocessor, which are also called as 16-bit microprocessor. Okay, which is the first 16-bit microprocessor? Anybody? Can you name some 16-bit microprocessor?
8086.
8086. 8086 is the first 16-bit microprocessor, okay, introduced by the Intel. Okay, and how many? What is the size of the memory of this microprocessor 8086? How many memory location is it able to address? 8086 microprocessor. Again, that depends upon the width of the address bus. So this 8086 microprocessor has 20-bit address bus. Okay, so 2 to the power of 20. Okay, 2 to the power of 20 means how many bytes? 1 megabyte. So this 8086 microprocessor was capable of accessing 1 megabyte of memory. Okay, and it also comes with additional instructions such as multiply and divide instructions, okay, which were not there in the earlier microprocessors. Okay. Then after 8086, which is the microprocessor that came into existence? 8088. Okay, so which is an improved version of 8086. Okay, or an updated version of 8086. And these 8086, 8088 microprocessor are called as the CISC um, microprocessor. Okay, or complex. What do you mean by CISC? Complex instruction set computers. Then after 8088, the next microprocessor was the 80186. Okay, this microprocessor was never used. Okay, and after 80186, we have 80286. Okay, and this had additional aspects like interrupt controller, clock generator, local bus controller, counters, and so on and so on. After this comes the fourth generation microprocessors. The fourth generation microprocessor also called as 32-bit microprocessor. Okay, so which are the 32-bit microprocessor then? Anybody?
80386.
Yeah, 8036. Okay, and then after 80386, we have 80486. Okay, so what is the additional improvement done in these microprocessor or additional advancement done? So in these microprocessor, the cache memory was introduced. Okay, in earlier microprocessor, there is no cache memory, and in these microprocessors, cache memory was introduced, and also math coprocessors were introduced. Okay, after 80486, we have Intel Pentium. Okay, Intel came out with the Pentium processors. Okay, Then what is the additional thing they have? These Intel Pentium microprocessor. Apart from the L1 cache is nothing but the cache memory inside the microprocessor itself is called as the L1 cache. Okay, and L2 cache is nothing but the cache memory that is separated from the microprocessor. Okay, so which exists between the microprocessor and the RAM. So that is called as the L2 cache. So these Intel Pentium microprocessor have two levels of cache memory. Okay, L1 cache and L2 cache. So in Intel Pentium, the cache memory is of 16 KB, and it is split into two: 8 KB for storing instruction and 8 KB for storing the data. And at the same time, in these microprocessor, the instruction pipelining was introduced. Okay, so pipelining is nothing but a technique. Okay, where the next instruction is prefetched before the current instruction is being executed. So that is called as pipelining. That means the process of fetching the next instruction while the current instruction is being executed is called as instruction pipelining. Then after Intel Pentium, we have Intel Pentium Pro. Okay, here the cache memory was doubled. That means the size of the cache memory was increased. Okay. And it has L1 and L2 cache. So L1 is 16 KB and L2 is 256 KB. Okay. And then after Pentium Pro, we have Pentium Xeon, and then came the Pentium 2. And this Pentium 2, in Pentium 2, the another feature added was MMX technology. So MMX stands for multimedia extension. Okay, so where we can work on all these multimedia applications such as images, pictures, audio, video, and so on. Okay, so MMX technology was introduced in these microprocessors. Okay, Pentium 2. Okay, and then after Pentium 2, we have Pentium 3. Okay, Pentium 4. Okay, so all these have increased their cache memory size. Okay, so after this came the 5th generation microprocessor. So they are also called as 64-bit microprocessor. Can somebody name a 64-bit microprocessor?
Core i3.
Yeah. So one such microprocessor is Core i3. Okay. So the Intel started developing Core microprocessor. This Intel Core. Okay. And what is the advancement happened in this 5th generation microprocessor? So they allowed to have multiple CPUs in a single system. Okay. Advantage is to achieve multi-processing. Okay. So CPU core is nothing but, as I said, it is a CPU processor. That's all. Okay. CPU's processor, and each of which can work on different tasks. Okay. Each such core can work on different tasks. Okay. So multiple cores, the microprocessor started coming, and one microprocessor was Intel Core 2. Okay. It had 2 cores. Okay. And these microprocessors supported SMT technology also. SMT stands for simultaneously multi-threading. It is also called as hyper-threading technology. Okay. Mm. That means these, as I said, allowed multiple CPUs in a single system to achieve multi-processing. And the other versions of this Intel Core include the Core 2 Duo, okay, Core 2 Pad, okay, Core 2 Extreme, and so on. Okay. So, what do you mean by this superscalar technology? So, superscalar technology is nothing but uh, here the many microprocessors can communicate directly with each other, allowing the parallel processing. So that is the idea behind this. Um, so what is that? Superscalar technology. Superscalar threading or superscalar technology. Okay. So after this, we have Core i3, Core i7. Okay. Yeah. So that is about the evolution of microprocessor. Okay. Let us know the today's agenda. Okay. So today we'll discuss the microprocessor based personal computer system and the different units of this microprocessor based personal computer system. And one such component is the memory. Okay. And we will also see the memory map of the personal computer. Yeah. So the computer systems have undergone many changes recently. So earlier, the computer system usually used to take the large rooms not to accommodate them. So machines that once filled large areas have been nowadays reduced to small desktop computer systems. Okay, so this is because of the microprocessor. This is because of the invention of the microprocessor. Okay, and here we are going to learn the structure of the microprocessor based computer system. Okay, and so what is this figure shows? So this figure shows the block diagram of the personal computer. Okay, so this diagram also applies to any computer system. So if you observe the figure, uh, this block diagram is composed of uh, three components, which are those: the memory, the microprocessor, and the input and output system. Okay, all these components are interconnected through buses. Okay, so then what do you mean by bus? Here is the definition. Okay, so bus is nothing but a communication link used in a computer system to send the data, addresses, control signals, and power to various components in a computer system. Okay, so bus is nothing but a set of common connection. Okay, common wires that carry the same type of information. Okay, for example, the address bus. As I said, there are three types of buses: address bus, data bus, and control bus. Say, for example, the address bus, which contains maybe 20 or more connections. So what it conveys, it may convey the memory address to the memory. So the memory can be RAM, cache, it can be ROM, it can be a flash memory or EEPROM, electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. And the microprocessor example, it can be 8086 microprocessor, 186, 286, 386, Pentium. Okay. And then the examples of input and output system, printer, hard disk drive, mouse, keyboard, and so on. So we'll discuss each of these blocks in detail: the memory, microprocessor, and the I/O system. So first, the memory map of the personal computer system. So this is the memory structure of all the Intel 8086 and Pentium based personal computer system. Okay, when I say 80x86, that include all the microprocessors starting from 8086 to 80486. Okay. When I say Pentium based microprocessor, it include Pentium, Pentium 1, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, Pentium 4, and so on. So this memory system is divided into three main parts. So which are those? TPA stands for transient program area, and then the system area, and then the XMS, extended memory system. And this figure shows the memory map of the personal computer. Okay. So the memory is divided into three parts. So see here the TPA, transient program area. So what is the size of TPA? it is 640 kilobytes. Okay. And next is the system area. It is of 384 kilobytes. Okay. And then the extended memory. Okay. So the TPA and the system area together forms a total of how many bytes of memory? You add these two, 640 kilobytes and 384 kilobytes. So this will comes around 1 megabyte. Okay, so TPA and system area together forms 1 megabyte of real memory or conventional memory. Okay, so this area is called as real or conventional memory. Okay, that means the first 1 megabyte of memory is often called as the real or conventional memory. Why it is called as real or conventional memory? Because each of these Intel microprocessor is designed to function in this area in its real mode of operation. Okay, actually there are two modes of operation of microprocessor. One is real mode of operation of microprocessor and the protected mode operation of microprocessor. Okay. And note that the extended memory system XMS, okay, is not available in those computers based on earlier 8086 or 88 microprocessor. Okay, and these extended memory system area is available only to the processor from 80, 286 and above. Okay. See here the extended memory. Okay, it is 15 megabytes in 80286 or 80386 SX, and it is 31 megabytes in the 80386 SL or SLC, and it is 63 megabytes in 80386 EX version, and so on like that. Okay, so this extended memory area is not available in the earlier microprocessor, okay, such as 8086 or 8088. Next is what these memory area contains. TPA system area. Okay. First, the transient program area, TPA. So this transient program area holds the OS. Okay, earlier this transient program area is used to hold one operating system. So that operating system is called as the DOS. Okay, DOS stands for disk operating system. Okay, and other programs that control the computer. And it also stores any currently active or inactive application programs. Okay. Usually the DOS applications in the earlier computers. And what is the length of this TPA? The length of the TPA is 640 KB. See here, the length is 640 KB. So this figure shows the memory map of the transient program area. And this figure also shows how many areas of the TPA are used for system programs, data, and drivers. So some of these areas may contain system program, and some of these areas in the memory may consist of data, and some of these areas may contain drivers. So which are those memory area? Okay, and if you observe the diagram here, the memory map shows how the many areas of the TPA are used for system programs, data, and drivers, as I said. And this figure also shows the memory addresses that begin and end each data area. Okay. See here, the memory starts from 0 and ends at, what is the ending address? 9 followed by 4Fs. Okay. So each memory area will have a starting memory address and an ending memory address. Okay. So this interrupt vector area starts at 0, okay, and ends at 1 less than the starting address of the next area. Okay, 00400 minus 1. Okay. So the next area, bias communication area, starts at address 00400 and ends at one less than the memory address than the starting address of next area. Okay, so like that. Okay, and all these memory addresses are in hexadecimal. Okay, addresses we always represent in hexadecimal. Okay, so each of these addresses is represented in hexadecimal. So what do you mean by hexadecimal number system? So in hexadecimal number system, each digit is grouped as 4 bits. So if you observe here, so take the example of the memory address. How many zeros are there? 5 zeros. Okay, and each digit is 4 bits here. Okay, each digit is represented with 4 bits. Let us discuss the content of each of these areas. First, the interrupt vectors. Interrupt vectors. So the interrupt vector access the various features of the disk operating system and the BIOS. Okay, BIOS stands for basic input and output. Okay, and applications. So this BIOS is nothing but a collection of programs which operates the input and output system. Okay, that means it enables you to use the keyboard. Okay, see display onto the screen and so on. Okay, that is the job of the BIOS. Then above that we have the BIOS communication area and the DOS communication area, which contain the transient data. Okay, transient data used by programs to access the I/O devices and the internal features of the computer system. Okay, they holds the transient data. Okay, used by the program. What do you mean by transient data? Transient data is nothing but the data that is created within the application itself. Okay, or when the application has started. Okay, and at the end of uh, the session, the application session, it will be discarded. That means storing something that will stay for short amount of time. So that is the meaning of the transient data. Okay. That means temporarily storing something for a short amount of time is called as the transient data. So BIOS and DOS communication area holds the transient data, okay, used by the programs while accessing the I/O devices. Then above the BIOS and DOS communication, we have IO.sys program. So this IO.sys is a program that loads the that loads into the TPA from the disk whenever an MS-DOS system is started. Okay, so whenever you start the MS-DOS operating system, no, so this IO.sys file or program is loaded into this transient program area from the disk automatically. Okay, and what it contains, the IO.sys. This IO.sys contains programs that allow DOS to use the keyboard, the video display, printer, and other I/O devices often found in the computer system. Then we have the MS-DOS program. As I said, MS-DOS is an operating system, okay, from Microsoft. MS-DOS stands for Microsoft Disk Operating System. Okay, so this will occupy 2 parts of the transient program area. So one area is here, okay, starting from this address, and another area is here. Okay, where is this? Yeah. So this is another area. It will start from 9 followed by FFFF0. Okay. So this MS-DOS program occupies 2 parts in the transient program area. That means these areas contains the OS itself. Okay, MS-DOS OS itself. So above that we have the device drivers such as mouse.sys. Okay, what do you mean by device driver? Drivers are normally files that have an extension of .sys, such as mouse.sys. So drivers are programs that control the installable devices like mouse, scanner, and so on. Okay. So we'll talk to the external devices like mouse, scanner, and so on using these device drivers. Okay. And mouse.sys is one such device driver program or a file that is used to interact with the mouse. Okay. Then above that we have the command.com. Okay, so in order to interact with the MS-DOS operating system, no, we need this program, that is command.com. So command.com is a program, okay, that controls the operation of the computer from the keyboard when operated in the DOS mode. Okay. When you operate the MS-DOS operating system in DOS mode, no, okay, we'll use this command.com. Okay, and this command.com program processes the DOS commands as they are typed from the keyboard. Say, if I want to know the date on the system, we'll open this command.com and it will open a command window, and there we'll just type the command as date. Okay. Then it will give the today's date as the result. Okay. And above that, we have the free transient program area. This free TPA area holds DOS application programs as they are executed. So that is about the transient program area. Then we have the system area. So the system area, which is smaller than the TPA. So how many kilobyte it is? 384 kilobytes. Whereas the TPA is 640 kilobytes and the system area is 384 kilobytes. Okay. What it contains? The system area. The system area contains program on either a read-only memory or flash memory. Okay, and also areas of read-write RAM memory for data storage. Okay, so this system area contains programs for data storage. Okay. So this figure shows the system area of a typical computer system, and this map also includes the hexadecimal memory addresses of the various areas. Say, for example, this video RAM area starts at address A followed by 4 zeros, and this video RAM area starts at address B followed by 4 zeros. Okay, so like that. Video BIOS RAM starts at address C followed by 4 zeros. Okay, and all these memory addresses are in hexadecimal. Okay, so each digit is 4 bytes. And this first area contains the video RAM. Okay, so what this video RAM contains? That is called as a graphics area, that is used to store image data. Okay, if you are working on images, no, all these images are retrieved from this video RAM. Okay. And also another area is there, video RAM, VRAM, that is reserved for text area. Okay, that is used to store the text. Okay, which will be rendered on the display. Then we have the video BIOS RAM. This video BIOS RAM is actually located on the RAM or flash memory, contains programs that control the DOS video display. Okay, display is nothing but your screen. Above that, we have hard disk controller RAM. So this hard disk controller RAM, okay, if a hard disk memory is attached to the computer, okay, the interface card must contain a RAM and a disk BIOS, and this RAM holds low-level format software. Are we getting? So this RAM holds the low-level format software, which is used for erasing the disk quickly. Okay. If you want to format your hard disk, okay, so this is where the low-level format software is stored. Okay, hard disk controller. And then we have the free area. The free area is used for expanded memory system in a personal computer system, or for the upper memory system in an AT system. Then the next memory locations contain the basic language RAM, that is cassette basic language on RAM, okay, which were found in early IBM personal computer system. And then we have the system BIOS RAM, last area, the system BIOS RAM, which controls the operation of the basic IO devices connected to the computer system. Any doubts so far? Are you there? Students, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then the input and output space, okay, IO space. So the I/O devices allow the microprocessor to communicate with the outside world, as you know. Okay. So the input and output space in a computer system is extended from the I/O port. It is mentioned here, I/O port, starting from 000H to port 4FH. Okay. Here H stands for the hexadecimal number. Okay. H is appended at the last in the address. Okay, to indicate that it is a hexadecimal number. Okay. So the IO address start from these addresses. Okay. 000H to FFFFH, 4FH. Okay. If you see the IO map of a personal computer here in the figure show. So it starts from 00040 and it ends at